problem with D&D's exploration rules is that there are no exploration rules. But in this video, I'm going to show you the methods I've used for years on how to quickly and effectively describe your game world and surrounding environment, how to nudge players to explore and discover the content you've prepared, and codify the way you handle landmark, hidden, and secret information in your notes and to your players. But deficient! D&D has exploration rules right here! On page 181, the DM describes the environment, the players describe what they want to do, and then the DM narrates the results of their actions. I mean, this isn't wrong. I'm all for rules light presentation. But doesn't this feel sort of like a draw the rest of the owl kind of explanation? Isn't it frustrating when you're describing the environment while your players quote Monty Python references, only to spend the next 15 minutes trying to get your players to examine anything in this dungeon room besides this chair that was only meant to be set dressing?
Is there anything in my time of torture and awful that would tell me this chair is?
Yes. It's a chair.
Good exploration requires good information. And in tabletop RPGs, all information is filtered through the Game Master. There are many ways we can improve our environmental descriptions, such as reading more or using all the senses, but that takes both time and effort, things we Game Masters love to circumvent. So here's 2 techniques and 1 tool I use for my environmental descriptions. Maybe they will help you as much as they've helped me. Most of tabletop RPG play is like passing a ball back and forth between the Game Master and their players. You toss the players some information. They toss back either questions or actions. You then toss back more information, be that either the consequences of their actions or further details to their questions. A bad example of this would be, you walk into a tavern, what do you do? This description is too fuzzy, because everyone at the table is going to be imagining a different tavern. And while perhaps the number of tables, the placement of the bar, and the color of the wallpaper won't matter, the more fuzzy your description, the more questions you'll need to filter from the players before they'll feel comfortable to actually do something. But if you're too detailed and paint your prose with a little too much purple, you all might be imagining a similar tavern together, but half your players mentally checked out 3 sentences in your description, while the other half are asking redundant questions to details you already mentioned 2 paragraphs ago. There's nothing wrong with a little more description to evoke a certain vibe, but in tabletop RPGs, you want to give the proverbial ball back to your players as quickly as possible, so they can start making their poor decisions. Let's create a room together to show you my process. Let's say we're making a haunted manor for our players to explore. This room is the study that will contain several game elements the players can discover as they explore the manor. Why am I drawing this? I have an unpaid editor. My go-to formula is to use 1 or 2 descriptors for the general scene. You're in an opulent bedroom. You enter an abandoned, ransacked chapel. Or in the case of our example room, you walk into a gloomy, gothic study. And if I'm feeling fancy in the moment, I'll add a sentence or 2 that evokes the other senses. But bonus points if I can incorporate this second trick to make the scene feel alive. Here, let me show you. What did your eyes focus on in this scene? What about this scene? If you're like me, my eyes were drawn to the horses and the car because our eyes are instinctively drawn to movement. It's built into our survival. When I set the scene, I always try to highlight something moving. Even in an empty dungeon room, I'll still point out a trickle of water from a crack in the wall, or the way the dust rises and gently settles as you enter the threshold of this empty room. Flames flicker, leaves fall. The world should always be in perpetual motion. You walk into a gloomy gothic study. You smell old parchment with a hint of pipe smoke as your eyes are drawn to the curtains, swaying from a cold breeze coming from the open window. Now, my third quick tip to describe your world more betterer is to use a tool that provides over 10,000 different descriptions for monsters, places, items, characters, dialogue, or anything you might draw a blank on in the moment, such as the sponsor for today's video, Describe. That's right, boys, we got the Describe sponsorship. I'm checking it off the D&D tuber bucket list, baby. But for real, all the descriptive text Describe provides is just icing compared to their new Opus web app, which allows me to use their pre-made soundscapes full of ambient tracks, including music scores by Michael freaking Gelfie. You know, the ambient D&D music channel you throw up last second in your combats while you pray. Pray to cheese sauce. YouTube doesn't interrupt Michael's sick beats with an ad.
You're like me, one of the millions suffering from erectile dysfunction.
Is this an ad? In an ad? But I can even create my own collections and share them with the community. Like this one that sounds just like my office. Why is my comment section so mean? Wow. Is there such a thing as too immersive? But if you use my link below, you'll double your trial period to experience all of Opus yourself. Thanks, Describe, for sponsoring this video. But despite these tricks and tools, I still feel like my scenes and environments are too hazy for the players to comfortably explore. We need to present the gameable materials in these scenes in a way that'll get our players both curious and active in exploring the environments we've set up before them. And we do this by categorizing the information we give our players as being either landmark information, hidden information, or secret information. I first learned this style of game design by Courtney Campbell over on his blog Hack and Slash Master. But it really started clicking for me when I read Ann Hunter's featured article on Knock Issue 2. When I'm stalking a room or location with things to be discovered, I first set up the landmarks, which is information that the players get immediately for free. I tend to give out 3 or 4 pieces of landmark information at a time, usually around the number of player characters, so each one could examine a different landmark in a single exploration turn. If I really want to purposely overwhelm the players, or in a more complicated room like this one, I'll put in even more landmarks. You walk into a gloomy Gothic study. You smell old parchment with a hint of pipe smoke as your eyes are drawn to the curtains swaying from the cold breeze coming from the open window. You see the open window to the south, a large oak desk near the window, a glass-paneled bookshelf that stands out among the many shelves of books here, a mounted elk head near you on the north wall, an ornate baby grand piano in the northwest corner. You also see a small table with a chess set in front of the east fireplace, and finally, a shiny suit of armor in the northeast corner. What do you do? Yes, there are things here in this room that I did not point out directly in my description. That doesn't mean they don't exist. Whether my players have this visual map or we're playing this out in our heads, my players can still interact with things I didn't specify, whether that's them seeing the couch on the map and asking to examine it, or them asking me if there's something specific in this room that I didn't spell out. I either can say yes if it makes sense based on the scenario, no if it's something too far out of left field, or maybe if I'm unsure, in which then I'll either have the players roll a check, or I'll give it a 2 in 6 chance of whatever they said being here. These landmarks are how I lead my players towards my prep. This is how I avoid having them spend 15 minutes real time asking me to title all of the books in this study's library. Things like the couch, the rug, and the fireplace don't directly further the scenario I've prepared. While it's true that there is no such thing as set dressing in tabletop RPGs, I still need to guide my players towards the gameplay. And as I said in the beginning, all information is filtered through the Game Master. I filter my world's information by defining the landmarks. I'm basically running a point-and-click adventure, where the stuff you can point and click on being the landmarks. After I describe the landmarks in the room, my players decide which ones they individually want to examine and explore further. Now we're getting into what Anne calls hidden information, which is information that requires the player characters to actively examine or interact with the landmark information. Anything that's behind, under, inside something is hidden information. But learning this information costs the player characters time and a bit of risk, because what's hidden can be either more information, treasure, or even a trap. In our example room, what's inside the glass-paneled bookshelf is considered hidden information. In my notes, I represent the transition from landmark to hidden information with an arrow. This is my players clicking on things, tossing the ball back to me to give them more information. I check out the chess set. The chess set appears to be set up mid-game. It looks like it's Black's turn. Roll investigation. 7? Now we're getting into the third and final tier of information. Secret information is information that must be earned through either player characters' abilities such as skill checks, or by player skill, where the person who's playing Red Fighter makes a connection. Did I pass? In this particular situation, I could either say Red Fighter fails to notice any specific play Black could make, Or I could go the extra mile and show my Red Fighter player what the actual chess match looks like, giving them a chance to notice what I would have told him if they succeeded. The Black Bishop could take the White Knight with 0 risk. Now, how Red Fighter interacts with this chess set, if at all, will affect what happens to another piece of landmark information. In this case, the suit of armor. This is how I make traps and secret doors interesting to discover. I always make them hidden information, not secret. But disarming the trap or discovering how to open the secret door is usually secret information. Bonus points if you can spread that information to 2 or more different landmarks. This is how I make information exciting for the players to discover. It also makes my notes way easier to reference at the table. And this is why mainstream adventures suck! Because well, I'll explain in this video. So how do you handle exploration in your games? Do you have a better method? If you want to see my complete notes for the study room we used, check it out on my Ko-fi page, and consider joining the Coffee Masters Guild while dropping by. Thank you, all current guild members scrolling here. More content to come, but that's all I've got for now. See ya!